In 1907, Jane Addams reported that over 2 million children under the age of 16 were employed across the U.S. A year later, a man named Lewis Hine started traveling around the country, taking pictures of working children. At the start of the 20th century, child laborers were commonly working all day, 6 days a week. Kids worked at coal mines, factories, cotton mills, cotton fields, and other places. Some children worked on the streets, selling newspapers or shining boots. Children were replacing adults as workers, as they could be paid less. Very few laws protected children from long hours and dangerous conditions, and those laws weren't enforced. Many people tried to create better labor laws and enforcement. One of these people was Lewis Hine, who employed photography in the fight against child labor. All of the photographs of working children in this documentary were taken by Lewis Hine. Lewis Hine was born in 1874 in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. In the 1880 census, Hine's father reported that he ran a restaurant and had a boarder providing extra income. When Hine was 18, his father died, and Hine had to work at a furniture factory to support his mother and sister. The furniture factory closed in 1893 due to an economic downturn, forcing Hine to take on odd jobs until he got a job at a bank. Many workers in his town were replaced with children. This was protested by a local newspaper. When Hine was 25, a man named Frank Manny convinced Hine to quit his bank job and go to the state normal school, a local teachers' college where Manny was a professor. In 1901, Manny was appointed superintendent of the Ethical Culture School in New York. He invited Hine to join him as a teacher of geography and nature study. The Ethical Culture School believed in human equality, and working there helped cultivate Hine's belief in social equality. While working at the Ethical Culture School, Hine started photographing school activities. Later, Hine and Manny photographed immigrants arriving at Ellis Island. Hine also took some small jobs taking pictures for some reform agencies, including the National Child Labor Committee, or the NCLC. Created in 1904 and later chartered by the government, this organization's goal was to outlaw labor by young kids and shorten working hours for older kids. In 1908, Hine was hired full-time by the NCLC to photograph working children. In the 10 years that he worked for them, he traveled all around the country, photographing children and recording details about their workplaces. He traveled as much as 50,000 miles per year, developing his glass negatives along the way. Factory owners did not want pictures of the conditions within their factories publicized, and Hine was often banned from entering or threatened. He would try to sneak in by posing as a fire inspector, but it didn't always work. If he did get in, he would take notes and pictures in secret. If he couldn't get in, he stood outside and took pictures, recording information and notes as the kids left. In his notes, he recorded detailed information about the kids. He did this to make his pictures verifiable, so people could learn about the kids and relate to them. Sometimes, he would visit the houses of some of the children and talk with their parents. One time, he went to the house of two kids and followed their father, finding that the father was living off the wages of his children. The NCLC published pamphlets and articles with his photographs. Hine personally designed the brochures and wrote captions for his photos using the information he had collected. He also gave lectures and slideshows to the public. He wanted to educate the public so they would see the horrors of child labor. Convincing the public was an important step in the passing of child labor laws. Hine's critics said his pictures weren't shocking enough. Hine didn't try to exaggerate the poorness of people in his photos because he thought people should see the truth. Hine made sure he didn't fake or retouch his photos at all. Even so, Hine's photos are still stirring, even today, almost 100 years later. Louis Hine showed people what was happening in factories and other workplaces. He also photographed children working in hazardous jobs, such as glassworks, mines, and canneries. In glassworks, the room was often above 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Children were often cut by the glass and got sick from breathing in fumes. They worked long hours, but most were only paid about 65 cents a day. One of the most hazardous occupations was coal mining. Some children sorted coal outside the mine, but would often get caught in the coal chute and mangled or killed. Older children worked underground, with very little light, and were sometimes killed by explosions or cave-ins. Hine also reported on hazardous conditions in this 1909 report, Child Labor in the Canning Industries of Maryland. A few political attempts to outlaw child labor were made, but they were unsuccessful. Finally, in 1938, the Fair Labor Standards Act was passed, limiting the work week to 40 hours and setting a minimum wage of 40 cents a day for anyone over 16. After school, children between the ages of 14 and 15 could work in non-mining, non-manufacturing jobs, and all children could work in agricultural jobs after school. Hine's photos illustrated the plight of American working children and rallied the support for child labor laws. Because of this, child labor is almost completely gone in the U.S., despite the fact that there are still over 200 million children working in other countries around the world. Hine's unique qualities made him the ideal person for this job. He was persistent, courageous, and hard-working. He had also had the experience of working as a child and was able to empathize with other working children. Hine has left a great legacy. Without his photographs, child labor in the U.S. might have lasted a lot longer. Every year, Louis Hine is remembered by the NCLC, who hands out awards in Hine's name to people who have helped improve the lives of American children. Thanks in part to Louis Hine, American kids today are free to learn and play.